Hi folks, hope you're doing well. Yeah. So, I did the video earlier talking about the fact of, okay, the church is completely worthless to me, and they basically think that I came there to curse them, but they're going to realise, probably too late, that really isn't the case. We'll put it this way, if the church is useless to me, who is it useful for? Well, I can tell you who it's useful for. I mean, biblically speaking, chaff. Church is only useful for chaff. You know that stuff that was sown in amongst the wheat? To make it look like wheat, but it isn't. That absolute rubbish that's going to be separated at the end. That's what the church is there for. Not there for anything else. I mean, it's useless to the world. Put it this way, the Christian church is useless to the world because they already have the Catholic Church. They have the Mormon Church. They have the Jehovah's Witness Church. They have various other types of churches. They don't need a Pentecostal church, a Baptist church, a Methodist church, a Reformed church, an Evangelical church, or a Charismatic church. They don't need any of that, not at all. They have enough religious churches. They don't need more to be added to that list. You have no use at all. That's the point. You have no use. And that's why the harvest will not be coming into these churches. Or as I say, if it does, then oh my God. Well, no, actually, that's quite interesting. If it does, then it means that basically God is leaving the harvest until after the Lord comes. Because, guarantee, if the harvest comes into the church as it is right now, most of it will leave. It won't remain in the church. It will go. Well, as I say, the church has, for a long time, a very long time, struggled to attract young people. Well, of course it has. If your songs, it's like the River Church. If your songs are, a lot of them are 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, that's your worship. It's all come from a book that was written 20 odd years ago. And it's all about the fact that you have people in the church who they want the worship to be the stuff that they remember when they were young, and they just come to the Lord. That's what the worship is all about. Well, okay, no one's going to come for that reason. What about the ministry? Well, if the ministry is comfortable and non-offensive, well, hasn't the world got that already with their comedy and with their visiting lecturers and things like that in universities? They've got all that already. They've already got safe. So what can you offer? You can't offer what you don't have, so they're never going to get God in church because you don't have God. I'm not just talking about the one church, I'm talking about church in general. You don't have God, you can't give what you don't have. So at the moment, this is where people in church have got to make a decision. That's why I said earlier, if you are one of those people in church and you've been praying for the church for all these years, you've got to stop praying for the church and you've got to start praying that God helps you to be the person that you can be, so that you can make a difference in the lives of the people that you know. And so that you can start showing God rather than just talking about God. You're going to do that because that's where the difference is going to come. You can be a difference maker, but to be a difference maker, you've got to change. You've got to be someone who does, rather than someone who says. Now, you're not going to get that in church. Because anyone who tries to be that in church is going to be told to shh, shh, shh. You don't need to do that. Calm down. Calm down. What, you're trying to be some super spiritual? That's what you get in church when you try and be someone who walks it out. Oh my God, they don't like that. Because as soon as you start doing it, they have to do it. They don't want to do that. So they don't like you doing that because it means that they now have to make an effort. Why would they want to do that? They had it nice and easy before you. They're just going to get you out. And that's another point. The church already has a cancel culture. They don't need church for that. Yeah. They don't need. They've already got Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and all these other mediums where they've got to toe the line. And they've got to be who people want them to be. Otherwise they lose a load of friends and all this stuff. I mean, for goodness sake, we have, I've said for years that the Christian church, at least it's not as bad as the Jehovah's Witness or the Mormon church, that when someone is standing against a belief, that in those other churches, they basically cancel you. Well, sorry to the Mormon church and Jehovah's Witness church, Christian church is as bad as that. It really is. So I'm sorry that I've said for years you're worse in that way, because you're not. I just needed to go to the River Church to find that out. The River Church isn't worse than most others. It's the same. Put it this way. Is it worse than the church that the pastor comes from in America? No, because I imagine the church in America must be exactly the same. He's been over here long enough to basically leave a mark. And the mark he's left is it's okay to ban people from church. It's okay to cancel people if they're saying things that you don't like. Yeah. Yeah. So, is he church in America the same? I'd imagine so. Because he's not going to come over here and have different ideals for this church than he does for the ones over there, is he? Really? No? No, I mean, okay, for 5 minutes I did think, well, maybe God has shown me a church that is far worse than others. No, that just isn't true. I really don't think there's any truth in that in any way, shape or form. Because what would be the point in that? So as I say, I do not believe that River Church is on the extreme level of bad. I don't think it's anywhere near. I mean, it's pretty much the norm. I really do. Yeah. But as I say, that's interesting. I don't see that as a terminal thing. I see that as an interesting thing. Because, okay, if that's the case, right, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I know if God ever wants me to go into a church and help that church, I know the things to be looking out for. I know the things to be speaking about, because I know that in that church, it's not going to be that different to the River Church. It won't. Not in any way, shape or form. It'll be quite similar. In many, many ways. And so, yeah. It's good. Yeah. So, as I said, I don't think that there will be a chapter 3 with regards to that I'm going to go to another incredibly negative church. I don't think that's going to happen. Because I don't think I'm going to go to another church. Not in that sense. Unlike Chris Blackaby, I don't feel the need to come under a pastor. Put it this way, if I could come under someone like Robin Williamson, I would. He's a pastor that I could come under. Because he's an actual pastor. All these other people, they're not pastors. They've just gone to Bible college and they've been labelled, they've had that label put on them. It doesn't mean that that's what they are. Now, if I could come under a real pastor, that might be useful, because then I could learn a bit more about stuff like that. Although, really, God is already showing me his nature towards his people and his love towards his people. And even though his people are, you know, 1 billion miles away from where they need to be right now, you know, I know that if it's his will, then he can have that distance crossed very, very quickly. And there are going to be surprises. There are. I mean, put it this way. I mean, that's why I've been very quick to say, with regards to the people in that river church, that I'm not going to count any of them out. Not in any way, shape or form. Because with God, it's quite often the people that you wouldn't expect for him to use that he then uses. So, yeah. I've done videos recently saying there's 1 or 2 women that I think would receive what God is doing now. But that's what I'm saying. It's quite likely that they are not the ones who would, and the ones who I think certainly wouldn't are the ones who will. Yeah. That's how God works. And it's like, okay. Yeah. But that's why the word says his ways are far, far different to ours. Yeah. Because we always, me and other people, we look at people, and over time, what we see in people helps us to completely dismiss those people and count those people out. But that is never the case with God. God doesn't do that. God looks far, far deeper, and he can see exactly what needs to be done. That little that little tweak, shall I say, not twerk. Twerking is different than tweaking. The little tweak that can completely change that person's life and bring them to exactly where Father is right now. Yeah. And then, wow. Yeah. All things are possible. All bets are off, aren't they, really? So, yeah. So, yeah, let's keep watching and see what God does. I think we are going to see some incredible things. And, yet, more than likely through the people that we're not expecting it to be through. So, as I say, let's not count anybody out. It doesn't matter who we see, and it doesn't matter what our views are of those people. With Father, anything is possible. And, yeah. If he can minister to people through a pile of dead donkey bones, then he can use whatever or whoever he wishes. Yeah. If you count people out, then really, yeah, it's at your own risk, isn't it, really? Yeah. You're the one who could lose out, because if you dismiss someone to the point where you wouldn't even take notice if God is using that person, then yeah, you lose out. So let's not do that. That would be an incredibly unwise thing to do. Well, as I say, I mean, yeah, if the usual suspect aren't going to be the people that God's going to use, then yeah, it's most likely going to be the people that we wouldn't usually expect. And so if you're one of those people that wouldn't usually be expected for God to use, then yeah, be prepared. Yeah, of course. So you take care. God bless. Speak to you soon. Enjoy. Bye-bye.